the trial progressed, jurors were immersed in a clash of narratives. One of home defense, the other of cold-blooded retaliation. They heard 911 recordings, expert testimony, emotional accounts, and Brian Camp's own words. They saw the photos he took of Jonathan. One in particular showed the wounded man clutching the back of his head, just moments before the fatal shot. Prosecutors relentlessly emphasized the time gap between the two gunshots. Jonathan, they argued, had been incapacitated by the first wound. The second shot, fired 8 minutes later, was not an act of fear, but an act of retribution. But the defense pushed back hard. Fear, they said, doesn't follow logic or timing. This wasn't a calm, calculated moment. It was the chaos of a terrifying night. With 2 young children in the house and an armed intruder who had declared his intent to kill, Brian believed the threat wasn't over. They pointed out that Jonathan had broken in with a knife and handcuffs. The defense asked jurors to imagine what could have happened had Brian hesitated. Brian testified that he believed Jonathan was still dangerous. He said the intruder appeared to be trying to push himself up, prompting him to fire a second shot, from 10 to 15 feet away. He insisted it wasn't meant to kill, only to stop further danger. Prosecutors challenged that account, citing inconsistencies between Brian's story and the forensic evidence. They questioned the trajectory of the fatal bullet, the angle, and whether Jonathan, badly wounded and moaning, could have realistically been a threat. They also highlighted Brian's decision to photograph the scene and call his boss instead of helping the dying man. In closing arguments, prosecutors painted a picture of a man who had taken control of the situation and then chosen to execute his intruder rather than wait for the law. The defense described a man thrust into a nightmare, doing everything he could to protect his family from a violent attacker. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict: not guilty. The decision shocked some and relieved others. For Brian Camp, it was the end of a harrowing 2-year legal ordeal. But for many, the case left unsettling questions about the limits of self-defense, the psychology of trauma, and how thin the line can be between protection and punishment.